The Blind Swordsman, Essay More. Koji, blind since his mother's murder, now fights to prove his abilities to the sighted people of the world and to himself. Next, Chapter 1. The Grad Exams Training, pages 3 to 6. Chapter 2. Finals, pages 7 to 13. Chapter 3. Here in Edo, pages 14 to 17. Chapter 4. Climbing with Jamito, page 18 to unfinished. Chapter 1. The Grad Exams Training. Kensai Domain, Osaka, Japan. Feudal Era. June 5th, 1492. The last thing I saw before the sword came down on me was the fire burning my verse to the ground, and my mother's murder laughing evilly as he held her by the hair and stabbed her in the throat. "Be brave, my little warrior," she had told me in the final breath of life. Now his blade, covered with blood, torn towards me and swiped across the ground. With the first of the blade, the ashes of flames were thrown into the air, and I turned just in time to only have my eyes very deeply burned by the ashes of the flames. Koji Senshi, age 10. Japan, 1500, Kyoto, Japan, Academy of the Blind Sword. The Academy of the Blind Sword stood atop a mountain, a large building in the middle of a forest, with green outer walls and trees all around the front gate, and a small bridge ahead, heading towards the gates. Outside in the training grounds stood a large group of students and teachers, watching the fellows train. The master and student stood ready to attack or defend. Suddenly the master attacked, and the student blocked. Attack! Now block this, Koji! The blow came from above. The sounds of the kendo hitting each other echoed throughout the training grounds. The kendo hit against each other as the youth noticed Koji pushes the sensei's kendo away from him and attacks again. Once more the sounds of the kendo clashing is heard. "Good, Koji. Rest now," his sensei says to him as he takes a seat against the building. "Thank you, sensei," Koji says to his sensei, bowing. "Yuki, up!" Sakai sensei calls. A girl about the age of 16 came running up, shouting, "Height! Yes!" She stood taking a fighting stance against Sakai sensei. "Begin!" Sakai shouts, taking his fighting stance as well. Yuki moved towards Sakai, slashing downwards as Sakai blocked, pushing her kendo away, and attacks her, stopping short of hitting her. At that, Yuki falls to the ground, panting. "Rest!" Sakai sensei said. Later, boys' dorm, 8 p.m. Koji sat on his bed, running through his training again within his mind. Koji continued his training to hear sounds and not to be scared of the unseen. "Koji-kan?" A girl's voice came from outside in the hallway. "May I enter?" She heard a question and answered yes, as she heard the door open and close, as the girl's footsteps echoed on the hardwood floor, as she took a seat on the bed next to Koji. "Good evening, Koji," the girl said. "Good evening, Yuki," Koji replied, looking in her direction. "How was your training?" Yuki asked. "Difficult, but I'm happy finals are in a few weeks," Koji whispered with a smile on his face. "Yes, and if you pass, you'll leave the dojo and can say you have the skills of the greatest of the blind swordsmen. Huh, Koji-kan?" Yuki asked with a smile. Koji could feel the warmth coming from Yuki's face. "Yuki-chan. Besides, I like you too," Koji said. "That's not why I'm blushing, though, Koji-kan. Well, it is, but—" Yuki began as she looked at Koji's bare chest. "You're shirtless." Yuki blushed harder at the sight of Koji's bare chest. I see. Sorry if you see scars," Koji replied, blushing some as well. Yuki moved closer to Koji, touching his chest ever so gently. Sorry, I deterred you long enough. I'll leave now," Yuki stammered, standing to leave. "No, Yuki, it's okay. Stay, please," Koji said quickly, grabbing her arm and warning her to stay. "Are you sure?" Yuki asked, unsure if he meant it. "I'm sure," Koji said, as he pulled her down to his lap and kissed her softly. "Koji?" Yuki sighed into his kiss. Koji didn't answer as he broke the kiss, letting them both breathe. Yuki, surprised by this kiss, gets up and runs out to the girls' dorms. The next morning, Koji woke with the thoughts of the night before still in his mind. We kissed. Koji walked out of his dorm room, heading towards the grand hall. Once Koji finds his dorm table and sits next to Yuki, who is eating steamed rice and an omelet. Koji sat down and looked towards Yuki. "Good morning, Koji-kun," Yuki said, looking at Koji. She bit into her last bit of omelet. About last night, Yuki. I didn't mean for that to happen," Koji said. But Yuki paid him no mind. She got up and ran to some of her friends, Koichi and Takashi, and hugged them both. "Good morning, Yuki-chan," Takashi said as he hugged Yuki. 8. They all hugged each other and walked off, leaving Koji sitting alone. "What?" Koji's jaw dropped. "What'd I do?" He groans. 8 o'clock p.m. Koji stood outside, his idol in hand, and took his fighting stance, and swung at the bamboo targets, cutting them apart and shaped his idol. Near a towel and wiped the sweat off of his forehead. From in the shadows stood one of the masters of the dojo, watching Koji train. He had plans for Koji, a great blind swordsman he would make, with some more training. "Takeshi-sensei, why are you watching me?" Koji asked, as he could feel his Kai there. "You doing well," Takeshi says, looking at Koji. "Thank you, sensei," Koji said, looking towards his voice. Takeshi stood there, wearing a kimono of sky blue in color. He continued to stand there for a second, and walked off, his hands behind his back. Koji then walked back into the main building for dinner.